Internal Revenue Service IRS tax tip. What to know about the tax-exempt application process for charities. IRS tax tip 2020-121, September 17, 2020. Organizations that meet specified requirements under Section 501C of the Internal Revenue Code may qualify for tax-exempt status. These include charities, social welfare organizations, civic leagues, social clubs, labor organizations, and business leagues. Most organizations are required to apply for recognition as state exempt. Here are some key things that charities should know about the application process. Application includes a fee. The application must be complete. It must also include a user fee. There's a link to the user fee here so you can get some more information on the fee. Step-by-step review process available. The application process, there's a link to the application process here so you can get some more information on that on IRS.gov, includes a step-by-step review of what an organization needs to know and what to do in order to apply for tax-exempt status. Organizations that don't need to apply. There are a few types of organizations that do not need to apply for 501c3 status to be tax exempt. These are churches and their integrated auxiliaries, and there's a link to them here, so you can take a look at that list here for more information on that, and also public charities whose annual gross receipts are normally less than $5,000. Employer identification number required. An employer identification number is an organization's account number with the IRS and is required for the organization to apply for tax-exempt status. So the IRS still wants to identify, the organization with basically the EIN number, the organization number. Everything's a number to the IRS. So we're a social security number. The business or nonprofit is going to be an EIN or employer identification number typically. So every tax-exempt organization should have an EIN, which is an employer identification number, regardless of whether the organization has employees. So the fact that it's called an employer identification number might lead you to believe that, well, I only need one if I have employees, because obviously you do need it if you have employees because you're going to use it to process the payroll, but it's also kind of like the social security number of the company in some ways to the IRS. So you still need an employer identification number just to identify the company, as well as to identify the company as an employer if indeed they are an employer with employees. Organizations may apply for an EIN. There's a link to the applying process here online by fax or by mail. International applicants may apply by phone. Timeframe to notify the IRS. Generally, a charitable organization that is required to apply for recognition of exemption must notify the IRS within 27 months from the date it was formed to be recognized as exempt from formation. And you typically want that, right? You want to basically make sure it'll most likely be an easier process if you are starting an organization that is intended to be a not-for-profit organization, to have it be a not-for-profit organization from the inception of the organization. Otherwise, it could be a little bit confusing. You would think you can have some confusing with that process. So if you're going to start the not-for-profit, you probably want to make sure you file within the time frame to make sure it is indeed a not-for-profit for IRS purposes at the point in time of inception. Classification as a private foundation or public charity. When the agency determines an organization qualifies for exemption under Section 501c3, it would also be classified as a private foundation. There's a link to private foundation if you want more information on that. Unless the organization meets the requirements to be treated as a public charity. There's a link to public charity so you can see those details as well. Documents available to the public. A charitable organization must make certain documents available to the public. So if you're going to get the benefits of being a charity, then you also have to be more accountable to the public for those benefits you're receiving. That typically means more transparency in order to do that. So some information then needs to be available to the public. These include approved applications for recognition of exemption with all supporting documents and its last 3 annual information returns. Requests for documents. The organization must provide copies of these documents upon request. Organization may charge a reasonable fee for replication and copying costs. Organizations that fail to comply may face penalties. More information can be found, and there's links to these areas. Application for the exemption, frequently asked questions, stay exempt, tax basics for exempt organizations, public disclosure and availability requirements, frequently asked questions. There's going to be links to those items here. There'll be a link to this in the description.